Smugglings, what is happening? This is going to be the review for Last of Us Season 2, Episode 6. This is the penultimate episode of the season, and we're nearing the end. We've got one more week until the final episode, and I'm ready. I got my Metal Gear Solid mug. I do want to get a Last of Us mug, but this is what we're working with at the minute, because I love Metal Gear Solid as well. So that is the case with that, and we begin this one with the setting of Austin, Texas. This is 1983. We get the young Tommy and Joel in this scene, and they are scared of getting hit because they lost some money in a drug deal, and they're afraid their father, who's a police officer, is going to reprimand them quite heavily for it. And we get this conversation between Joel and his dad, and how his dad's remorseful of having hit him in the past, and he's about to go on patrol. And you can see here that Joel is being the protective older brother, and he's trying to save his brother Tommy from getting into trouble and getting hit, which is really commendable, and that feeds into their relationship in the future, obviously. And we get that little opening scene before the credits come up, and it's basically showing how Joel is determined to break that cycle that his family have been in, because it seems like there's a pattern that has emerged in his family of being quite bad to their children, and he's always eager to break that cycle. It's a big theme of the games as well, as breaking that cycle of violence. And then we get the opening credits, and we get a flashback to the early days of Joel and Ellie in Jackson. And that's what this episode is. It's mostly an episode that is filling in the gaps of what we haven't seen yet in the show. And it is just delving into the early days of Joel and Ellie in Jackson County. And we see that for Ellie's birthday, Joel builds a guitar for her and plays the song Future Days by Pearl Jam. And he did that for her birthday. And Ellie gives the line that didn't suck, but then doesn't really make much sense here, because in the game we know her mood is quite low when she sees Joel, but it's not the case here. She's in quite a happy mood, as she seems to be more often than not in the show. It's a difference in the character, and we've seen that quite a bit in the seasons of the show, which is completely fine, but the dialogue doesn't really make much sense when she's in a happier mood. And that is the case with that. But we then go 1 year later to her next birthday, and Joel and Ellie visit the Natural History Museum. And I'm going to say that the chemistry and the banter is really good between Joel and Ellie. I don't think that's ever been a problem in the show, because they've always had really good chemistry in that relationship, and it's also shown here as well. And I think people will be happy to see more of Pedro Pascal in this show. I know a lot of people are missing him as the lead of the show, understandably. And we get that scene in the Natural History Museum, which we see in the game. And Joel shows Ellie the way to the Apollo 15 shuttle in the museum, which left in 1971, and Ellie goes in the space shuttle, and she gets the Gemini helmet. A nice little touch here, because you get to choose what helmet you're gonna use in the game, and I like that they gave Ellie that choice here. It's a nice little touch that reminds you of the game quite a bit, so I thought that was quite nice. And the entrance into space is simulated as is in the game, and we get a nice little sequence where Ellie is imagining being shot off into space, and it's done really well here. Reminding me a lot of Oppenheimer, the way they do certain effects in Oppenheimer when he's being interrogated, and you see the light on his face, and there's a lot of practical effects to simulate an event happening, and I thought that was quite nice, quite nicely done there. And we're going through the years here, so we start off at Ellie's 15th birthday, and I went on to another year later, so it's 2 years from that, which is Ellie's 17th birthday, and then Joel goes to surprise Ellie, but Ellie and Kat are in the bedroom, and she does a tattoo on Ellie, which is obviously trying to cover up the scar that she's got from a bite. And then we try to work out what the moth actually means, because Ellie has obviously been drawing moths and she's trying to get a moth tattoo from Kat. And he talks to Gail, which is the therapist at Jackson County, and she advises him that it doesn't actually mean rebirth, which is what butterflies mean, but it means death. And then Joel realizes that, and then we go to 2 years later, and Ellie wants to know the truth about Salt Lake City, what actually happened there, and she's practicing asking Joel questions when she's in the garage, which she's moved into because she wants to have more distance from Joel. And they go out on patrol. The relationship is quite good here, actually, even though Ellie is trying to move away from Joel a little bit just to have her own space. Their relationship is quite good at this moment, and it's a theme that it seems like some things bring up Ellie's memories of Salt Lake City, and then she wants to ask more about what actually happened there. And I thought this was nice, where we see what actually happened with Eugene. So we know in episode 1 that Joel killed this character named Eugene, which is a character in the game as well, but he is the husband of Gail, the therapist. And with that, we see that Eugene has been infected while they're on patrol. So we see that he's been infected and they have to deal with him, and the person playing Eugene is Joe Pantoliano, who's a really good actor. He's been in a lot of stuff. Obviously, he's been Risky Business, The Matrix, Sopranos, Memento. Great actor, so it's cool to see him here. Quite a prolific character actor, and he's been in a lot of stuff, so it was nice to see him pop up again here. I thought that was quite nice. And then we see then that Ellie's upset with Joel as he killed Eugene when he promised that he would take him back to Gail as per his wishes, and he didn't do that, and he shot him right there, even though he had a bit of time. But Joel wanted to deal with him as quickly as possible, and I see that Ellie messes everything up here in quite a big way, where she tells everything to Gail, and Joel seemed to be a liar then when he said that Eugene was very brave. He said that he wanted to get killed at that point because he knew that he was going to turn, but Ellie says how afraid Eugene was at this point, and she tells Gail that Eugene wanted to come back, and if I were Ellie, I would not have said anything, quite honestly. And I think this really messes a lot of things up for Joel. And I do think Ellie comes across as quite ungrateful here at the minute, as she doesn't realise how much Joel has done for her. And I don't agree with her actions at all at this point. And then we go to 9 months later, where the relationship is damaged between Ellie and Joel, and this is at the New Year's party that we see in episode 1, and it's the party where Seth gives his remarks to Ellie and Dina that this is a church and you shouldn't be doing that. And at this point, we see a nice little scene where Maria tells Joel how much he means to Tommy, how much he means to Maria, how much he means to the family and Jackson County, which was nice. I like that they said that here. Thought that was really nice. And then we obviously see the scene where Joel pushes Seth to defend Ellie and Dina, and Ellie refuses to help. She is not having it at all, and she's not happy that Joel has come to their aid at this point, as the relationship is severed and not in a great place. And Ellie tells Joel that he lied to her and she's not very happy with him. But I would look at it in the way that Joel really did keep her safe, and it was obviously very difficult for him to do that across the country, and he sees her as a daughter and he obviously wants to keep her very safe, and he kept her safe from every horror imaginable. And I do think Ellie comes across as really ungrateful here, quite honestly, and I have an issue with that in this episode. And she's not even grateful that she's alive. It's a very difficult place to be kept alive in this world at this time. It's very difficult to survive, and I think I should be grateful that she's alive. I think she's really ungrateful at this point, and I had an issue with her quite a bit here. And obviously she gets very angry at the party, and after that, where we see the little conversation that Joel and Ellie have, which is the last time that they speak to each other properly. And Ellie says that she wants to forgive Joel after he admits everything that happened in Salt Lake City when she presses him, and he says that she was going to be the possible cure for the vaccine. And I want to speak a little bit about this, because I know that Neil Druckmann said that she definitely was going to be able to create a vaccine for the cordyceps virus. But how could you know? And I know that great podcaster Colin Moriarty from Last Stand Media brought this up, and I thought it was a really great point, that how could you honestly know that it was definitely going to be the cure for the virus? I don't think you could, and I agree with that. And it makes Joel's actions more justifiable if it wasn't certain that the virus was definitely going to work. And how could you possibly know if you haven't tested it on any one person? You couldn't really know. So I'm with Joel 100% here, and I got an issue with Ellie's responses here. And I like Ellie, you know what I mean? Bella Ramsey is a great actor. I think she's really good, and she's given some really great performances, and it's something that parallels my thoughts on Ellie in the game in some ways, because I preferred Abby's journey more in Last of Us Part 2, but I still love Ellie as a character. I think she's a really good character in the game. I have an issue with the way she's portrayed here, and it's so petulant, and it's very different, and I think it comes across as a bit bipolar, because her mood changes so suddenly in the TV show, and in the game it's gradual, and that could be something that lies completely with me in the way that I'm looking at it, but that is what I see here, and it doesn't read as authentic to me when I'm looking at it in the show. And we've got one more episode for this season of the show, and I'm not going to be someone that lies here. I'm going to say that I'm not the biggest fan of this season of the show. I did like it, but it did let me down a little bit. I loved the first season. I thought the first season was awesome. I thought it was really great, but this one has let me down a little bit. It started off really strong, but there's just too many things that have let me down in this season. I want to see where it goes in the final episode, where we get to the theatre at the end of this episode and we see that Ellie returns there. So I want to see what happens. and we can assume from what we see in the game that we're going to see more of Abby in the third season. As that, it will be the completion of the storyline of part 2, so we're going to see where that goes. But those are my thoughts on the second season, episode 6 of Last of Us, guys. What did you think of the episode? Again, I am very sorry that I seem a bit negative on this season, and it wasn't my intention, but I'm always hoping to be proven wrong. I want to see where it goes, but that is what I think of this episode. So what did you think of it, Smoglings? Let me know in the comments down below. Really appreciate you, and I will see you soon, Smoglings. You guys take care, and I will see you soon.